Hi, and welcome to the 51st Annual Gasparilla Festival of the Arts. I'm Jamie Jenkins, Vice President of the Board. I'm here with Dennis Peterson. Dennis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, this is Dennis Peterson. My medium is wood and specifically furniture.
So, Dennis, I'm going to ask you one very important question. How long have you been doing Gasparilla Festival of the Arts?
Well, last year was my first year. I had wanted to come down to the festival a number of different times, but it never seemed to work out. So last year was my first year at the festival, and I just had a great time, really enjoyed it.
It was a very big year for you as well. I hear you won a big award.
Yes, I won Best of Show, which really flabbergasted me. We were at the award ceremony, and they were calling the names, and some of the people that I knew got awards, and we were getting ready to leave, but we wanted to stay for the last Best of Show award. And they called my name, and I turned to Stephanie, and I was so flabbergasted. I asked her, "Did they really call my name?" So I just started laughing. I couldn't believe it. It was a real exciting time. Really, really surprised me.
Well, it's great to have you here. We're going to show our viewers a demo that you create for us.
Okay.
And then we'll jump back and do some Q&A with you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Dennis, and my medium is wood, and specifically furniture. And I wanted to thank the Gasparilla Virtual Art Festival for allowing me to do this video. I have a new chair that I'm working on. It's a design, I call it Anna's stool. This is a high top stool for countertop height or tall table height, 36 to 37 inches. The stool is a brand new design, like I said, and I'm doing a set of 8 of these stools for General down in West Virginia. And I thought I'd do a little demo here today and show you a little bit about the stool. We start out, these are some of the pieces that are in the stool. We start out with a square block of wood. We turn it around like this, and then we let that sit for a few days so it can continue to shrink out. We want it very dry. And then after a few days, I turn that round piece into a profile spindle. And this is the back piece. The back structure that goes onto the chair like this. So what we want here with a chair is real critical because there's a lot of stress on the chair when you push back on it and pull forward on it. We have the leg here, and we want the leg to have a little bit more moisture content in it than the spindle. Because we want the leg to shrink around this round tenon. That's why we want the tenon very dry, like 4% moisture content. And we prefer to have the leg 8% moisture content. So that's a difference of 4 percentage points. What that does is that when we push this into the mortise that we drilled for this leg to receive this round tenon, we glue this into place, and then with time, in a week or so, it shrinks around that and makes that a very tight fit. But initially, we turn this and we turn it 10 thousandths oversized. We want this to be a little bit bigger. And then I can take a heat gun and heat this up, or I can put it in what they call a heat box with a light bulb, and stick it in the box and then get that down to like 4% moisture. You can go a little less than that, but 4% is a good starting point. Then, because it's oversized, I hand fit each round tenon into each mortise. And I take what's called a card scraper, and I take this scraper, and I hand fit this. I continue to pull shavings off of this, like that. And then when I think I'm getting pretty close, I fit this into the round mortise. And let's say it's still a little bit oversized. card scraper again, and I can work from both directions. If it's fairly snug right here and too tight up here, I can pull this card scraper a little further up. If it's a little too tight, turn it around this way, and I can pull the card scraper this way, keep turning it around. So once we get a fit that's nice and snug, and obviously we're going to be putting glue on this. We put a waterproof glue like a Titebond 3 glue. And then when we fit it nicely, we push this in there. And that glue tends to expand that round tenon, and that fits very tight in there. And because the leg had more moisture, that shrinks and even makes it tighter still. So these are some of the processes that we do to do a quality chair like this. And these are some of the parts that we have. We have, obviously, we have the 4 legs. We have the seat. We have the front rail where your foot's going to go on. So we have the 2 side stretchers. We have the back stretcher. We have the front rail. And on top of the front rail goes the foot support, like so. We have the upright for the back that's got a profile that hasn't been rounded off yet, but that fits on that tenon that sticks out from the seat. And this is called the bridle joint. It's a 3-faceted joint. That goes on this particular tenon. And then the final piece is what we call the whale tail. And this is cut out of an 1.25 stock, profiled on both sides. And then it's a slot mortise that holds it on with the glue. And that fits on my circle. So those are some of the processes that we go through to build the chair. And like I said, this is a brand new design. And I call this Anna's stool. I have the stool right here, and this is a completed one. So you can see the front rail, the foot support, you've got the 2 side rails on it, you've got the back rail on it, the 4 legs, then you have this. You can see on here how the seat is profiled. And this makes the seat very comfortable. So up here is the seat. And this is the lowest point. This is scooped out 5/8 of an inch deep. And that gives a very, very comfortable seat. So that's one of the designs of the seat. When you're designing furniture, you can design it really artistically, but it may not be comfortable. So there's a real compromise between designing artistically and between designing structurally. And you want to marry those. So you have something strong stool. So that seat makes a very big difference as far as comfort. The other aspect of a chair, a stool like this, that you're going to be sitting at it for a long period of time, you can kind of see how the front legs are swaying forward about 2 or 3 more degrees than the back leg. And the reason for that is when you're sitting on the chair, you don't want your legs to be back all the way. You want to be able to have them pretty much a 90-degree angle to the floor, so it's more comfortable. That's why the splaying is on the front legs, so that it kicks the front legs out further. And then it's much more comfortable where you can sit at it for a longer period of time. Then you also have, like I showed before, you have the third tenons that go all the way through. And I don't know if you can see the wedges, but you glue all these round tenons into the seat, and you take this wedge that pushes that tenon apart and makes it really, really tight in there. So that's very strong. Then the final piece of the design is this back structure here. This is the upright. And then this is what's called the backrest. And that's critical to have this around 10 inches to the top, because that goes into the small of your back. And you want to have a curve, and I call this the whale tail. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of a whale's tail. That's why I call it that. So that's a critical aspect of the design feature, of the artistic feature of it. You also have this part here, and you have the upright. It has a nice curve to it. So when you marry the two, and you have a quality, structurally and sound stool with good material, and you put a nice design into the stool, you have a nice artistic piece. So thank you very much for listening to the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to thank the Gasparilla Virtual Art Festival.
Thank you for showing that to us, Dennis. Those are amazing chairs.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So what inspired you to be a woodworking artist?
Well, it was kind of a long journey. I had built earth sheltered houses out in Crested Butte and did all the cabinet work there. I had worked in a number of different shops, specifically a real big shop in Washington, D.C., where we had 100 journeyman cabinet makers from all over the world. There were Japanese, Spanish, Germans, Italians, and we did some amazing work. Everything was one of a kind there. It was really, really amazing to learn. Everybody has a long suit in one particular aspect of woodworking, it seems like. And working around that many people, I was able to pick up a lot of techniques, a lot of understanding as far as design elements, what makes a good design. And so that was a very big learning experience for me. And I got to the point where I wanted to start doing furniture. And I decided that since I lived in a small town, I wanted to go out into the general public in a lot of different areas of the country. And I found out about the art shows. And that's when I decided to start doing the furniture and going to the outdoor and indoor art shows. That was back in '89, thereabouts, somewhere in there. And it was interesting. The first show that I entered was a show in Columbus, and I won Best of Show at the first show I was ever in. And it was really surprising. The artists kept coming up to me and congratulating me. And I said, well, for what? And they said, well, don't you know you won Best of Show? And the promoter hadn't talked to me yet. I don't know how they knew before I did, but so that was pretty exciting to be at the first show that I ever did, and I won Best of Show. So that kind of encouraged me to continue on the path. And I've learned so much from all the other artists that I've worked with and seen at the shows. And all their work inspires me, no matter what medium it is, if it's done well and it's executed correctly and it's unique. Everything that I see really inspires me to do a better job with my own work and to continue to increase the quality and the design features that I put into my furniture. So that's kind of how I started.
That's great. We have some questions coming in live.
Okay.
Do you come up with these designs yourself, or are they classic designs?
I call them, all of my designs I designed from scratch. And I've been blessed with a really good eye for proportion. And a lot of people draw or make a mock-up of things before they do that. Sometimes I'll draw it, but a lot of times I visualize it in my own mind. And so I do all my own designs, but there's a bench that is on the website. I call it the brushstroke 2 bench. And a friend of mine was a Japanese watercolorist. And I was looking at his paintings one day at one of the art shows. And I said, Michael, that's a really beautiful stroke, that brushstroke that you did. Can I use that in a piece that I'm going to be thinking about building? Yeah, that's the bench right there. And if you look at the crest rail, the 2 curved parts, it's kind of like a yin and a yang there. That brushstroke was similar to that. And that's what gave me the idea for the back for that bench. So everything you see around you, if you're visually in tune, can help you. And it can start by one simple brushstroke like that, and you design a whole piece around it. So that was really pretty exciting to be able to see that, because I had never seen it in a bench before, a back like that. And that's what inspired me to do it, was the brushstroke that Michael had in his one of his paintings.
It's beautiful. Inspiration's amazing. Another question came in. Where can someone go to learn woodworking in their own town?
Well, there's a number of schools around the country. There's a school in Aspen, Colorado. There's another school in Indiana, in Franklin, Indiana. That is a woodworking school. There's North Bennett Street School in Boston, Massachusetts. A number of schools around in the country. In fact, there's a lot more now. When I first started out, I had to read books, and because they really didn't have the schools back then. And so I had to read profusely to be able to learn techniques and that kind of thing. But today it's so easy because you can learn how to do almost anything online. But if you really want to learn it, you want to go to a master and go to one of the schools, even if it's only for 3 months. So that a lot more possibilities for people today.
Where do you draw your inspirations from?
I think most of my inspiration comes from nature. In nature, you have very few straight lines. And that's one of the aspects that I like, is there's a lot of curved elements in nature. And I would say 99% of my pieces have at least one curved element in it. I did a table once. I was in the woods. I was fly fishing one day up in Colorado, and I saw a branch, and the branch had a reverse curve. It had a curve like this, and then it had another curve like that. And so I did a table, and I called it the Twig Table. And the front rail had that curve to it, that seam curve to it, and then I put a bead on that. So just that one branch alone gave me an idea for a sofa table, for the front rail on it. So nature inspires me. Like I said before, I go around and look at all the artists' work, and it doesn't really matter what medium is. And that inspires me also. But I would say nature significantly inspires me.
Do you have favorite wood that you like to work with?
Well, my favorite wood, there are 4,300 species of wood in the world. There's 43 species alone of rosewood. So a lot of people don't realize that. But my favorite American wood is walnut. I call it the friendly wood because it's so easy to work with. It has that beautiful, deep chocolate purplish color to it, especially wood that hasn't been kiln dried. If you get wood that's been air dried. So that's my favorite in domestic American wood, called American black walnut. And my favorite exotic wood is cocobolo, one of the rosewood. Really, really deep wine color as it ages, like a beautiful burgundy wine. And very, very hard to work with, hard to glue. You have to use epoxy on it when you glue it.
Do you look at a piece of wood and think about the design you want to make, or does the design come before the wood?
It works both ways. I had a piece of wood that was in my shop for 15 years. And I kept looking at it and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. It was a really heavily figured piece of curly maple, but it had a lot of bark inclusion on it. And it was a live edge slab. It was a small piece, kind of a triangular piece. It was only 9 inches wide on one end and 12 on the other. And I got to looking at it one day and I said, you know, I just figured out what I'm going to do with this. So I started doing metal work, metal bases. And so I welded up a metal base. It was a tripod base, 2 legs on one side, 1 leg on the other. And it fit the piece really well. I took it to a show. A young couple walked in and bought it right on the spot. They loved it. So that was one of the pieces that I didn't know what to do with for 15 years. So sometimes it takes that long before you get inspired. And thank God I didn't throw the piece out.
What has been your biggest inspiration along the way?
I'll tell you, I think probably initially when I was younger, it was James Krenoff. He started the Krenoff School, the College of the Redwoods in California in the real late 60s, early 70s. And a lot of people were influenced by him. He was a maker from Eastern Europe that came over to the United States. And he got people to look not just as furniture as a utilitarian piece, but as a design element for your home. And his pieces are really amazing. His book called The Cabinet Maker's Notebook really inspired me to look beyond just the wood that you're using and the piece that you're making, and to put design elements in it that really speak to you emotionally, physically, heart-wise. And so he was a real big influence. There were other ones like Sam Alouf. A lot of people know about him, this famous rocker that's in the Smithsonian Institute, the rocking chair out of walnut. And then of course, George Nakashima, who really was the grandfather of the live edge slab movement and the dovetail keepers, real organic forms on his furniture. So a number of different people along the way.
What piece of advice would you give to aspiring artists today?
I think as a young artist that's starting out, pursue your passion and make it happen. You have to put a lot of time and effort into something. You want to lock into your passion, whatever that is, and don't let anybody talk you out of it. And when you're working on a piece, no matter what medium it is, I think myself when I'm working on a piece, I think I'm going to be making this piece for somebody that I love. That inspires me to put the time, to take the time and put the time and do everything to the best of my ability, because I know it's going to someone that I love. So that is one of the keys that I use to inspire myself to not get discouraged if I mess up on something and start a process over. So make your passion, make it happen.
Great words of advice. I love it. We can keep going. Okay, so this last year has been very different with virtual festivals getting canceled. How has that impacted you and your art?
I think it obviously has impacted everybody, all of us as artists. To me, what I miss the most is the interaction. I love to go to the shows and meet with the artists and meet with the clients that come into the booth. Furniture is such a tactile thing, and it's so three-dimensional that a photograph really doesn't do it justice. You have to walk around it. So missing the shows have really impacted me from that emotional standpoint. And also the communities as a whole, they still need to buy art, and that's what's great about the virtual show. Also, I started, because I wasn't able to go to the shows, I started a new process. I started making green woodwork. In other words, it's very popular right now. I take green timbers and I hand split them and I make spoons. I do carved wooden spoons out of it and also bowls. And I have one spoon that I did. This is one of the ones early on that I did here. And I call it freeform asymmetrical. This was actually done out of a wild cherry tree on my property. It had fallen over and I got it before it really dried out. And so that was one of the spoons that I did while the pandemic was on. And it really inspired me to start doing some smaller things with real organic forms on it. So that was one of the things that I did. And I also I was blessed to have a number of commissions that came in while the shows weren't, on live. And so that helped me. But it's been hard on the artist, no question about it.
Well, we miss having you here in person. Hope to see you next year.
I'm looking
Please
forward
check
to it.
out Dennis's please check out Dennis's Events Me page and some of our other artists as well.
Thank you very much, James.
Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.